And so this is the simplest example that I have. So a friend of mine has a 17-year-old daughter. She got a job at a bowling alley and she makes minimum wage. And he said, why don't you become a phlebotomist? And she was like, well, I don't want to spend the money. He's like, it's $500 and it's a 2-day certification. And then after you have that, you make $25 an hour. So she didn't have the money. Now she could save it to get the $500, right? Or she could take a loan for the $500 from her dad and pay it back in a week. Right? Because she has higher earning capacity. And so it was like she could either save for 8 weeks, right, from her bowling alley to pay the $500, or she could take a loan for the $500, do the 2 days, and then pay it off in a week. So at that 1 week, she now has 7 more weeks of earning capacity. This is a micro example, right? 7 more weeks of earning capacity at her new level, and she'd be net positive on the next 7 weeks of earnings, right? And so that's just a micro example of like what skill investing does.
Welcome to the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy, where you will learn the tips, tricks, and strategies he teaches his world-class clients to give you the skills to dominate any business.
What's going on, Mindset by Design crew, and welcome to episode 412. Hope you're amazing as always, and life is treating you amazing. Do you know what? I was looking at what topic to choose today, and I grabbed the clip from Alex Hormozi being interviewed on Lewis Howes. I love this clip for a few different reasons. It's like what Alex is talking about, and why I wanted to introduce this today is, well, the economy kind of sucks right now. But not for everybody. Do you know what I mean? Not for everybody. Some people are making more money and having happiness and success more than they've ever had in their life. You have another group of people who are really hurting right now in life, seeing that everything's limited, what they know has been taken away from them, the security of their job, the reliability of whatever business they're growing. Maybe things have changed, you know? And it always makes me think back, because I'm about to visit the UK, you know, family's getting old. I'm doing it as much as I can, you know? I've been away 21 years, but family's family. And once they've gone, right? And that's the realization. Because I go back, listen to this. I just had a guy actually who I went to school with comment on a post I've got on one of my Facebook page. You know, 15,000 people on there. And there's this guy writes a comment. And I didn't know him. I wasn't friends with him in the slightest. Didn't know him in school. Don't know him after. But I recognize his name from somewhere. And what was wild is I put quotes on. They're all automated, you know. It's just to give people motivation. Sometimes quotes help people out that day, you know. We get lots of comments, lots of likes, and he writes, which just made me laugh, man. It made me laugh because it shows where the mentality is, it shows where the psychology is, and it shows why I really am creating this episode today, to break people free of that pattern. And he wrote something like, you know, oh, these quotes are good, but why don't you write your own quotes, and then put this emoji like someone going, oh, you know, and it just made me laugh, man. And I just basically said, do you know what? It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about sharing incredible people's wisdom so someone can get rid of their ego that day and make a different decision for themselves. And that's all it's about. That's what the podcast's about. And that's really what my life's about helping people. But back to my point. What's the point in this, Andy? I can hear you saying. I get it. So when I go back to the UK, it reminds me of who I was 21 years plus ago, you know? And I'm just radically not the same person because I've had so much experience in life, and just like you, I'm sure. And when I look back at those moments of who I was, I realized that I was seeing the world or experience reality so tiny, so small, Not understanding that this world is infinite. Business, creativity, success comes from the ideas we have, the decisions we make, and the actions we take. And when we can truly understand that, we have to be our ultimate version of us all the damn time, so we can see the world at this higher level, which means we can make the strategic decisions. We can have the ideas that are going to expand us into infinite possibility. We can do these things. But when we are living in a world of lack, fear, old programming, right? Your view of the world becomes very, very limited. Your focus is on what can't be done, the limitations, right? The fear of it doesn't work out. And this happens around money. It really does. And it's kind of one of the biggest first traits that an entrepreneur has to work through. Because you can create all of these amazing programs, services, products, whatever it is you're out there, whether it's e-commerce, you're building Saas, you're an online entrepreneur, you're a founder, whoever it is, that's who I love to help, right? And if you don't get this belief system around scarcity, then it's going to haunt you forever. And it doesn't mean that you won't make money. This is the thing, man. It doesn't mean that you won't make money. Because I've met billionaires who have this same mindset, right? But they built that money because of the feeling of lack inside of them and lack of self-worth. So they must accumulate to make themselves feel amazing. And it does create results, but it leaves people very, very empty inside. And that's not the idea. But anyway, back to my point with the UK. And it's not just the UK. It's far from just the UK, but it is that mentality of understanding that the power of how we feel about ourselves, future business success, ideas, concepts, growth, risk tolerance, all of those things, and leadership, all of those things come from inside of us. And if we understand that our unconscious mind is the automated part of our brain, right? Automated part of our mind that thinks, feel, and acts a very specific way. It runs outdated programs that need all updating. It holds on to traumas. It holds on to old focuses, old versions of us, and it limits us to who we can really be if we just wipe the slate clean and expanded fully, right? And this isn't just about like someone just getting started. This is the same patterns that come up when we are scaling businesses from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9 plus. It's the same exact thing, because what happens with an entrepreneur is we hit thresholds. These boundary conditions or thresholds are in our brain, and they then are, what they do is they create limitation. But why? Because the default setting of the unconscious mind, right, the automated part of our brain that blinks you, it breathes you, affects your heart rate, all these things, but it also runs behaviors. And when we understand that, then what happens is we hit a threshold before we step into the unknown. And remember, it wants to keep you safe. So it raises all these alarm systems. Are you safe? Are you safe? And it doesn't mean it's real, because you're always safe. But as we step outside of this threshold, this boundary, into the unknown circumstances, if those old patterns or trigger responses can elicit or light up again, right? Making us react to things like we don't when we're on our best. It makes us think of mistakes in the past, right? Behaviors from business partners, ourselves, decisions we made that went wrong. Or it can hold ourselves back from making high-level strategic decisions. And That's how business gets created. It's about what? Yeah, it's about the strategic decisions and the vision that we have. And then it's about the leadership behind it. You know what I mean? So whether it's thought leaders or you're building an actual physical product or service business, it's the same thing, man. It's the same thing. The ad spend comes in. Ooh, we get tight, right? We stop doing what a high-performing version of you does. Makes sense? So today's episode, back to today's episode, me going on a bit of a rant, but hey, that's what I do. Today's episode is really, really powerful, especially the start of it. It's an hour and 30-minute long interview. I'm only going to share the first little bit. You can go and check the rest out on Lewis's podcast. But it's really powerful, and we're going to jump into that. And speaking of jumping in, you need to. You absolutely need to. I got a few things for you to help you, you know what I mean? And these are the sponsors. I was going to do it at the start, but hey, we're going to do it now. Number one, make sure that you're heading over to andymurphy.online. I'll say it one more time, andymurphy.online. What you're going to do is you're going to see a beautiful detailed book that's for free. Yeah, jump into that for sure. It's called the Total Control Blueprint, and it's for any high-performing entrepreneur to build themselves into that high-performing entrepreneur. It's actually got more information in there than you'll find, more technical information than you'll find in probably like $1,000 course, and you get it to take a look for free. So go and check that out. What else? Well, on that page also, you're going to scroll down, or you're going to see lots of places. You're going to see if you can get access to the world's premier mental training system that exists. I'm telling you, it's the best in the world. It's called 8-Figure Thinker University. So go and check that out. It's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. You're going to love it. The third thing is this is for only a very select few of you listening. It's for people who are running a successful business. They're used to doing high six, seven figures, and you have dipped in performance. You know you need a psychological reboot to fire that up again, to get back to who you were, but this time expand into a whole different level of blue oceans, right? Blue oceans are no uncharted territories, but there is where you want to go and play again. And if that's you, I've got some options for you, and I've got ways and systems that I'm going to show you how to get there, like I've done for thousands of other people and some of the best in the world. And I want to do exactly the same thing for you really, really fast. So if that sounds like you, number 3, I want you to head over to andymurphy.online. It's all happening over there. And I want you to head to mentorship, and you can apply to chat. And let's just chat. If it's right for you, it's right for you. If it's not, that's okay. We leave as friends. But either way, if that's lighting you up, let's connect. Sounds good? Awesome. So you got number 1, go and get your ebook right now. It's incredible. Number 2, go and check the 8-Figure Thinker out. Number 3, if you are ready for the next level, then guess what? Let's have a chat and see if we can work together. Until then, let's go and kick out and hang out with Alex Hormozi and Mr. Lewis House. And I'll see you at the end of the show.
I feel like a lot of society keeps people kind of trapped in this broke mindset. It's hard to kind of get ahead, right? Mm-hmm. Because of people investing in things when they don't have money, so they're in debt and they kind of stay in debt. Mm-hmm. What is necessary for people to break the broke mindset? that society has kind of trapped people in that keeps them poor?
So I think like people have two sets of resources, right, that they allocate. So they've got time and they've got money.
Yeah.
And so if you look at someone's bank statement and you look at their calendar, you know what their life is. And you can also predict where their life is going to be in X amount of years, right? And so if someone wants to change what their life is going to look like, you have to reallocate where you're investing the resources that you have. And so from a time perspective, people who are poor, in my opinion, spend a lot of time not doing stuff. And that sounds terrible to say, but like at the base level, they're distracted,
They're not doing the right stuff.
Right. Well, I would even say not doing anything.
Just distracting them,
Right.
Playing
Just
video games,
Netflix, etc. All
yeah.
that stuff, right? So there's like the base is like they don't do anything. They're purely distracting themselves from their current state, which is hard because it's hard to confront reality. If you're like not happy, it's easier to just distract yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the level above that is you've got people who are operating, they are working every day, but they're operating in low leverage opportunities, right? So they're doing things that do not give them a lot of return on their time, right? And so it's like I could work, it doesn't matter how many hours I work at McDonald's, like it's very, very difficult to become wealthy there, right? It's just near impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like you could buy a building for $10 million and then sell it to somebody else for $11 million, just get the contract and make $1 million on the exchange. Super high leverage, right? From a time perspective, which is
Sure.
crazy for somebody who doesn't have money to even contemplate something like that. But the only way that happened, and that required no money, is skill, right? And so like that's an example of like it didn't require money to make that money. That's skill that's required to do that. And so first is the time, right? People are not doing stuff with the time that they have, or they're doing low leverage activities with the time they have. And then they're not trying to increase their output per unit time, which means investing in their skill set. So like one of the easiest ways to gain leverage on your time, and when I say leverage, just for everybody, like leverage is the difference between inputs and outputs in a system. So, Archimedes said, if you give me a lever long enough, I can move the world. And so to the same degree, if you have enough skills, you can do anything, right? And so skills give you leverage on your time. So you get more out of each unit of time. So if I'm a master cold caller, I will get more sales and calls booked for the same unit of time than somebody who sucks at it. Same time, more output.
So let me jump in there, crew. Let me jump in there. I love the start of this, and I love that Alex just went straight into the good stuff. It's an interesting ride, an entrepreneur, right? It really, really is. And I've looked into the minds of thousands and thousands of people, and I've looked into the minds of someone who's just got an idea all the way up to someone running $300, $400 million companies. And what you've got to understand is that every level of growth has its own internal level of growth. Does that make sense? So every time your business grows, you have to grow with it. And if you're not, then that next level will constantly be distant from you, or it will destroy you because you cannot handle that next level of success. Now, what Alex is talking about there is up-leveling a skill set. Now, you could go and learn, you might be running an e-commerce business, but you might go, I'm going to learn a skill and how to be a blacksmith. I'm probably not going to be highly leveraged, right? Not going to be highly leveraged unless you absolutely love it, turn it into a career, or just do it for fun. Different reasons. But when we can understand that, we have to learn a skill that is going to create a biggest leverage point, or what I call personally and teach a money move. A highly leveraged decision that's going to create massive impact or growth. That's a money move to me. That's what I teach, right? And so what you got to understand is you look at your life and your business and get real clear on what you want to experience. Because there's so many people, you might go, I'll just start a mastermind. Well, that's great, but you might hate masterminds. I'm going to build an e-commerce business. Well, that's great, but you hate numbers, right? It's got to be very careful what you say yes to, because you're saying no to something else. You got to be very careful what you say no to, because you're saying yes to something else. So when we can understand that, I want you to zoom out perspective-wise from your business and life and look in. Now, you might be going, what the hell are you talking about, Andy? Well, there's 4 levels of perspective. And when we can have the skill to be able to zoom out, zoom in from macro to micro, at will, it's called chunking, right? Then we can analyze situations differently. We can laterally think. We can put our brain through other people's perspectives of eyes so we can see their version of reality, which gives us a different perspective of how to sell deals, but also about branding, also about scaling, hiring, negotiation, or including ourselves. So when we really can understand that, then what has to happen is you can see the parts that aren't moving, the bottlenecks, right? And you can also see where the skill sets are that you need to double down on. Maybe it's your superpower, maybe it's bringing somebody in, but what is the skill sets that you need to create ease and flow inside of your brain, yourself, your business, and life? And what that does then, by zooming out, you probably find there's so many things that you're doing that are just wasting time, effort, and energy. Those are the resources that I teach that you can never get back. Time, effort, and energy, right? They're always expended. They get taken from you. But when we understand that and we zoom out, you might discover something really, really interesting. You might discover that I don't really want to do any of that. So what is it you really want? Well, this. Okay, well, how if we wiped the slate clean, if we started fresh, if we rebooted the system, if we were looking in someone else's life, what would be the simplest steps to be able to achieve that, right? Well, what is it you want? Most people, we want freedom, right? So if you want freedom, well, what does that really mean? Well, can you connect people to people? Can you think of a high strategic idea? Can you double down on your services that you're doing now? Can you bring in an investor? Can you, what is it you can do, right? That creates the outcome faster and faster and faster and faster, or easier and smoother, less friction. And when we can understand that, then it starts to analyze ourselves, our days, our lives very, very differently. So my next question is, from your level of thinking, can you see the solution to what you're looking for? Maybe, maybe not. But if we stepped out and looked in like you were watching your life and business as a movie, and you were the character, but you're in the cinema seats looking at the screen, what is it that you would do different? Does that make sense? I hope so. Maybe you want to re-listen to that bit, but let's jump back into Alex.
Right.
But because they developed a skill at a masterful level.
100%.
Yeah.
And so when people are allocating their time, they're not by percentage, they're kind of like consuming their time rather than investing their time. So they're either doing nothing or they're consuming the time rather than putting time into getting higher returns on their time, which is education, right? And so education you can have from like the conceptual learnings, watching stuff like this, or the actual doing, right? And so you learn
taking
more
action,
100%.
Failing, messing up, feeling like an embarrassment in the actions. Yeah.
The first 1,000 cold calls you make, the first 1,000 cold emails you do, the first 1,000 doors you knock on, the first 1,000, you'll learn more from that than you'll learn from every single book you read up to that point on the concept. You'll learn, right? And so people don't allocate nearly enough time to that in the beginning. And so I think one of the things that the formal education system did really well, that people poo-poo on it, is the idea of going into debt to gain education is something that fundamentally makes sense.
Yes, but it's got to be the right education that can make you money.
You got to get a return on it.
Yes.
That's the issue, right? You have to get a return on it, because the idea of borrowing from a future self that can make more money to pay for the thing that you're getting the skill for makes total sense. I think Elon was saying something about how Neuralink in the future, it's going to be such a competitive advantage that they could price it at whatever they want, because once you have it, you'll be so much more able than anyone who doesn't have it, that you could so easily pay off the price of the thing. That's how it should work conceptually, right?
Crazy.
That's how education is supposed to work.
Yes.
And so this is the simplest example that I have. So a friend of mine has a 17-year-old daughter. She got a job at a bowling alley and she makes minimum wage. And he said, why don't you become a phlebotomist? And she was like, well, I don't want to spend the money. He's like, it's $500 and it's a 2-day certification. And then after you have that, you make $25 an hour. So she didn't have the money. Now she could save it to get the $500, right? Or she could take a loan for the $500 from her dad and pay it back in a week,
Right.
right? Because she has higher earning capacity. And so it was like she could either save for 8 weeks, right, from her bowling alley to pay the $500, or she could take a loan for the $500, do the 2 days, and then pay it off in a week. So at that 1 week, she now has 7 more weeks of earning capacity. This is a micro example,
Yes.
right? 7 more weeks of earning capacity at her new level, and she'd be net positive on the next 7 weeks of earnings, right? And so that's just a micro example of like what skill investing does. And so that, because a lot of us talk about like, you got to get educated, you got to learn stuff, and like you learn stuff by doing it. And a lot of times you pay for that education or access to people who can teach you those skills, because a lot of people aren't going to give it to you for free, and that makes sense. It's okay.
Right,
Like it took them time to learn the thing, and they compressed that time to give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's why I'm if there's one thing that's my like life's mission, it's education. And so
you have to be very careful where you get educated, which means that's why I'm very careful who I put myself around and who I ask advice from, and why I'm always involved in, whether it's I've hired a coach personally, I'm in a mentor group, something that I can keep my mind constantly expanding, keep my brain constantly fine-tuned. It's so important. It's so important. What did Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTube star, he says, coaching is like a hack. It's a cheat code, right? Who wouldn't want to coach? Of course you should. You should just get the right coach who can make you think way, way bigger, hold you accountable, sure, but really give you those superpower skills that you need to be able to get the result that you want 10 times faster. That's the point, man. But for some reason, so many people do not understand it. They don't understand it. But the ones that do accelerate faster and faster than you ever thought was possible. That's why I do coaching. That's why I hire coaches. It's the whole thing. You've just got to choose the best.
I was telling my coaching students last night on a call that I had with them that I have multiple coaches. That someone was asking about mentors. Like, how do you find mentors? How often do you stay in touch with them? And I was like, listen, when I was broke, whatever it was, 15 years ago, just getting started in this space, I was lucky enough that I had a couple local mentors in Columbus, Ohio, that kind of had pity on me. But they saw that I had this hunger, this desire. I was like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Yeah. And then I came back 2 weeks later and I was like, I did it. Here's the results. Here's where I failed. And that's a fuel for mentors to be like, I gave you wisdom, you took action, you got results. I'll give you some more feedback. But if you just keep asking and you don't act, we talked about this with a mutual friend we have, it's frustrating for a mentor. They don't want to give you that time.
No.
And I told him, I go, this is why I pay mentors. You know, there's a big guy in media that has a massive business that I messaged him. I'm an acquaintance with him. I said, hey, I would love to pay you for some coaching. He said, I'll just do it for you for free for 30 minutes. Now, I want to pay him because I want to be able to do it more frequently. He said, I'll give it to you for 30 minutes because he likes me, we're friendly, but I know I can't call upon him for 30 minutes every week. So now I'll go back in 6 months and say, I took action on everything you said in that 30 minutes. Here's our results. Can we do another call? And that's kind of like what you can expect with a mentor, is that type of opportunity, unless you have a serious bond and they just want to give of their time. But investing in it, like you said, is so much more powerful in getting that speed of information, in my opinion.
Totally. The single highest return on investment thing I've ever done, and not to sound trite here, but I just like using scenarios. Like if I had taken all the money that I had spent on coaching, mentorships, courses, workshops, seminars, and put that in the S&P 500 when I, 10 years ago, right? The amount that I would have right now is inconsequential compared to what I currently have. And it's because I invested in something different. So rather than investing in the S&P 500, I invested in the S&P 500. So I took all of the excess cash that I had every single month, and rather than saying like, oh, I'm at a dollar cost average, I'm long term, I wait 4 years, whatever. I was like, I just don't make enough money. So like I could be the millionaire next door who saves every penny, doesn't go to Starbucks for my entire life, and have $2 million when I'm old, or whatever.
For the last 10 years of my life.
Right, and literally enjoy nothing during that period of time. That doesn't sound like this. It's not a trade I wanted to make. And so I had a belief that I know I will work hard, and if I'm given the right tools, I will be able to implement them. And so I took all my extra money, and this is kind of, a lot of people might not necessarily agree with me on this, but it worked for me. So I put all of every dollar I had, even went into debt, to get access to communities and mentors and coaching programs and masterminds.
Yes.
And those were the biggest gifts of all. And it wasn't even just like the biggest gifts I got from those wasn't even the education, but it was the perspectives on reality. It was people disproving things that I thought to be true. So I was like, this is the way the world is. And they were like, that's false. Mm-hmm. And my whole paradigm shifted because I had distortions of reality. I thought reality was different than it was. And so right now for people who are poor, it's because they actually don't see reality for what it is. Because the way they see reality, they see making money to be impossible or incredibly difficult, or it's only for a certain select people, not for them, right? And it's just because they literally cannot see it. And so I'm trying to think of an example of when like you can see something that, an easier example is like kids and parents, right? Like a kid thinks the world is a certain way and the parent's like, you just haven't seen enough stuff yet. And so, as you level up in the entrepreneur space, there's also just more levels of that where other people are like, this is the perspective you need to have. And you're like, no way, that's possible. And so that's where those rooms gave me the highest ROI. The other skills, because there's so many people there that are trying to learn the same things, they already said, hey, get this program, read this book. And so they helped sift through the mountain of information that's out there because I only have one resource, which is time at that time, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, I'll spend it, but where do I spend it? And they were like, okay, if you want to learn real estate, these are the top 3 guys. You can join this Facebook group, get into this guy's community. He has a coaching program that helps you do wholesaling. This guy's a coach that does Airbnbs. This guy does, and so it's like, which one do I choose? The answer for everybody who's curious is do them all. Mm-hmm. Because you're just like, you're not, like people are like, which one should I do? I'm like, you're not going to be poorer by learning more.
Right.
Right? And then it's not like you have a finite capacity to learn. The more you learn, the better you get at learning. Mm-hmm. Right? And then the more lines and synergies you find between different skill sets and opportunities.
The more dangerous you become.
100%.
If you just learn cold calling, but you didn't also learn, copywriting and email marketing or speaking on stage, it's the combination of multiple skills that make your earning power so much greater.
I'm literally getting goosebumps. Dude, I love it. It's the compound. Yes. And so I have this example where I break down Jay-Z, right? And so if you look at Jay-Z in the beginning, like he had, he probably had a natural proclivity for rhyming and beat or rhythm, whatever, right? So that was his first like kind of skill. He probably practiced that a little bit because he was into it, right? And then he started rapping, right? So that was his first level skill. And then he learned, writing lyrics. And it's like, okay, so that's another
producing,
skill. Right. And exactly. Then he learned producing. And then he learned marketing. And then he learned
performing on stages or something.
Yes. And then he learned how to sign other people to how to start a label. And he started learning. And so with each of these skills, it wasn't 1 + 1. It was like 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. Right. And so like in a formal world, like the world that's not rap, like if someone's good at math, they can learn accounting or bookkeeping first. Right. It's like, okay, that's a level 1 skill. And then you learn accounting. Okay, now you're making more. And then you learn how insurance works. And you're like, oh, okay, now you can start to see this person evolve. And then you learn how tax and tax efficiencies work. And you're like, oh. And then you learn how to package and sell businesses and negotiate those deals with, private equity and things like that. All of a sudden, that's a CFO. That's somebody who's making multiple $1 million a year, but it's the same basic few skills that stack on top of each other and get disproportionate returns on all the prior skills with each new additional skill.
Love that. And that's what you've got to remember. It doesn't matter what level you're stepping into life or business, or even stepping into a new area of your life. You might be moving location you've not moved before, right? And what you got to understand is that we don't know what person, idea, phone call, or concept that's going to appear in front of us the moment we step forward. It's like the universe rewards action, but action that's congruent with you, in alignment with you. There's something that you really want to do. Because what's the point? And you go, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then the universe is going to do what? They'll give you that. And then you're like, oh, this sucks. No, it's the things that didn't work for you. They were never meant to work for you. Does that make sense? They were never meant to work for you. If things took longer than you thought, they should then understand that it's perfect timing. You weren't ready for that. And when you can truly get that in your head and your heart, then what this is really about is understanding that you're going to move forward. You're going to take a step. Just take it with power. Take it with confidence. Take it with ferocious curiosity. And then from there, just upskill, and become the best you can be at that thing. And then the next door will be open. It's just how it works, man. And when we can truly get that, then we can't be afraid anymore. You can play as big as you want to play. Now, there's consequences of running a massive major business. There's consequences, right? Your time, effort, and energy is going to be used in a different way. And if you're okay with that and you're into that, then that's okay. It's the right move. If you just want to spend all your time with your family, all your time, there's two ways to do it. You can go, you know what? I'm just going to not have much money, but really enjoy my life and my family's life in a different way. Or you can go, I'm going to come up with the most simplest, badass game plan for the next 3 years that I'm going to give it everything I've got. And then that's going to give me residual income that then I can spend time with all my time with my family. Does that make sense? So we can expand into the infinite possibility, or we can resist and hold ourselves back. But either way, it's a choice, and you've got to be ready for it. And when we can understand that skill sets require mindsets, then everything changes. Because you can learn, like what they didn't speak about then, was you can truly become the best copywriter in the world. But if you cannot handle the pressure that's brought to you to do it day after day after day after day after day at that high level, and then the challenge becomes is your copy is not going to be as good. Or on stage, or sales, or building this next brand, or launching your e-commerce, or scaling your e-commerce, or your Saas business, or just whatever you want to be a founder at. When we understand that next invisible step is always waiting for us to take when we move forward, then every day becomes an adventure that we want to go on an adventure for.
Yes. And so the idea is not like people ask the wrong question when they're like, which course should I buy? Which program should I do?
It's yes.
Do them all.
Yes.
Do them all.
Yes to all, yeah.
Yeah. You want, like, because each one of them you will learn things. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be either different ways that someone's teaching, they'll have different communities, they'll have different beliefs, you'll learn from all of them.
And this is something I think, I'll hear this sometimes where people say, well, I just invested in this program. I don't know if I have the time to invest in this next course or read this book or whatever it is. And you got to think of like, I believe, I'm doing 5-6 interviews a week where I'm constantly learning. Yeah. Every time you come on, I learn something new. It's not like there are things that confirm what I already know, but I'm also learning new things. Yeah. It's not like I've said after 10 years of doing this, I don't need to learn anymore. Yeah. I don't have any more time to learn. It's so important for me to develop as a human being, and that's why I'm constantly learning. People don't need to sit down and do interviews with people all day long. They can learn in different ways. But I don't think the investment ever ends in how much you can learn.
And it compounds. That's the best part.
What would you say are the 3 main skills for someone to want to have the potential of being a 6 or 7 figure earner that they need to start learning now, so 2023, they have that potential?
In my opinion, there's 3 main skills in business in general. You got to learn how to sell, you got to learn how to build, you got to learn how to lead. So you got to learn how to get people to give you money for stuff, got to have the stuff to sell them, and then you got to have people that work on your side to help deliver on those other 2. If you can do those 3 things, you're unstoppable. And if you do one of those 3 things, you can make as much, like you can still make a ton of money. But if you can do all 3, you're unbeatable.
Mm-hmm. Sell, build, like building a team, building.
So that would be on the lead side. The building is like the product and services that you have. So you have to figure out a way to deliver value to somebody.
To develop a program, a product, a service that you can package and sell.
And people are like, well, how do I do that? All you have to do, this is the perspective thing we were saying earlier. It's like, I don't know where their opportunity is, and people who are entrepreneurs see opportunity everywhere. It's like, and my biggest regret in life is that I can't live multiple lives because there's so many things I want to do. But it's because all you have to do is look for problems. You look for things that people hate. You look for inefficiencies. You just look for things that are nuisances. Like, what are things that people do every day that they hate doing? Like, and a big misnomer, I think, is that people think they need to have a new thing. You can start a cleaning business, become a billionaire. You can start a lawn care business, become a billionaire. You can start a roofing business, become a billionaire. Like, there's clear problems. Like, all you have to do is just do what everyone else is doing, learn how to sell, learn how to deliver consistently, and learn how to lead.
Yes.
If you do those three things, you can do just as well as everyone else and just do it better.
It can be that simple, right? Obviously, the micro details are far from that simple. And you don't necessarily need to become a billionaire. Alex is on a mission to become a billionaire, right? So often they can lose understanding of where someone is who's doing 6 figures, 7 figures, But simplicity is right? And whether that's, again, you're building a digital business. His is a service-based business, because what he does is turn gyms around, and then he acquires those gyms or the franchise of the gym. And that's a brilliant business model, right? And he is obsessed with work, obsessed with it. Now, for everybody else, your obsession with becoming the best version of you should be the number one priority. He reflects that through his business. If he's on point, his business is on point. And I agree with that, and I teach that, and I think that's really important. But what you've got to understand is that those 3 things that he's talking about, if you're building a Shopify brand, or you've got an Amazon brand, or you've got some other type of e-commerce brand, or you're building a tech business, right? Saas. It's a case of, it's the same concept, but we all have to know ourselves. We have to know ourselves inside and out, because if you don't know yourself, how do you delegate? How do you position yourself into the correct role? How can you lead, right? The brand, the service, the product to where you want it to go? How can you sell it? And this all happens this is why I do what I do, because people who go into all of this go full throttle. They create success, they hit a threshold, they hit that boundary, they dip in performance, they start sabotaging themselves, holding themselves back, beating themselves up. They can't get that fire again. And guess what? Then they search for me, and that's when I help them. And then I reboot them to 2.0 version of themselves. And from that 2.0 version, we expand them into the fullest version of them. That's the key point, right? That's the key point. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to wrap it up soon, because this is a full interview that you can go and listen to. And I'm just giving my 2 cents worth today. But I really want you to understand that everything can be simple. You've got to be careful who you say yes to, or what you say yes to, because you say no to something else, and the other way around. Be careful what you say no to, because you're saying yes to something else. Make sure that you're investing in yourself for your next level of performance, your concept, the strategic ideas, the expansion. Make sure that you're really dialing in and being in alignment with what you want to do, and be so obsessed with discovering and unlocking your potential, your own superpowers, and really bringing in a small team or a massive team, whatever works for you, to make sure that they can fulfill those bottlenecks. And remember, nothing is forever. Nothing is forever. So if you've got a clear vision, a clear mission, and you've got like 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is to get that done, by bringing someone in special, then what they can do is really help you unlock that reality faster than you ever thought was possible. Does that make sense? I hope so. So crew, I'm going to wrap it up there. This is episode 412. That's a lot of talking, everybody. That's a lot of talking. But hopefully this helped you today. I really do. I hope it helped you for whatever reason. It just unlocks something special in you today. That's my gift, and that's my mission in life. So speaking of missions in life, make sure that you're heading over to andymurphy.online, grabbing your total control blueprint book. It's free, but it's awesome, and I should be charging a lot of money. And I will. But you can grab it right now because I love you. Number 2, make sure that you're jumping in. If you want the most premium mental training system in the world, you need to head over to andymurphy.online or 8figurethinker.com, 8figurethinker.com, and grab yourself a copy right now. Sometimes it's on sale, sometimes it's not, but right now you can go and find out. And what else? Oh yeah, if you are used to earning 7 figures or high 6 figures and you have dipped in results, success dip is what I call it, and you need to reboot and then expand into blue oceans and possibility, then I am your man. I don't have many places open, but you never know when you contact me. So head over to andymurphy.online, and what else there? Yes, you got it. Head over and click on mentorship. Fill the application in. Let's just have a chat. It's always nice to connect with new people, and let's see if we can help you. Sound good? Awesome. So until the next time, keep kicking ass. Much love, and oh yeah, one more thing. Why don't you smile for me?
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy. We'll catch you next time.